Words I hate hearing on YouTube. First impression, bar none. Nomenclature. And I think I'll probably think of a few more as I do this video. This is not a first impressions video, because if it was, then I wouldn't be doing it on this particular firearm. My first impressions of this firearm were when I first started to research the 45 ACP and whether or not I wanted to purchase it as a carry gun. So my first impressions were never going to be on video anyways, because I initially was enamored by the firearm itself. And this is a Springfield Champion operator, 4 1/4 inch barrel, I believe. It's also a lightweight model, and I just wanted to share my opinions on this particular model. So when I first started doing the research on this, again, I was looking for something that I could carry comfortably, and was looking for dependability. I was also intrigued by the lightweight option. Was also looking at the fact that Springfield offered a few more features standard on the 1911 than several other manufacturers. For instance, it had a bull barrel, bushingless guide rod, the Picatinny rail, standard Trijicon night sights, Novak style, skeletonized adjustable trigger. What else? Oh, also has the skeletonized combat hammer, upswept beaver tail with the memory bump. What else about it? I think those were the features that really appealed to me initially when I was making the decision to purchase my first 1911. By the way, this is my first 1911, and I did not find a whole lot of reviews on YouTube about the firearm. Of course, you had your oh, I'm not sure what you would call it, your videos from Springfield Armory, just talking about the handgun, doing a little bit of shooting with it, but really did not get into any specifics or detail about the firearm and how it breaks down or anything like that. There was a couple other videos that I found that were more, I don't know, I don't even know what you want to call them. I really didn't think that they were all that outstanding a review, just somebody talking about the pistol and comparing it to maybe several other firearms that he had, but they didn't really break the pistol down or get into their impressions of it. And there we go, impressions. So I've had the firearm now for probably 4 months. Bought it last year. I've got probably about 700-800 rounds through the firearm. Accurate. It is an accurate firearm. Handles well. It is light, I guess, by 1911 standards, I guess if you want to say. What more else can I say about it? Getting into some of the issues that I ran into with the Springfield when I first purchased it, and I'll try to include some photos that I took of the firearm the first time that I sent it in. Some of the things that I found were there were inclusions in the anodizing process on the aluminum frame. And what I mean by inclusions was it looked like that the anodizing was starting to flake off in certain points on the aluminum frame itself. And there are, I guess, a few more spots on here that I will show you coming up, because I do want to talk about the breakdown of the firearm itself, and that is another sore spot that I found with the bushingless style 1911s, as opposed to having a front bushing. So I guess we will just go ahead and break it down. And to do that, you need a tool, which Springfield does include. And I don't have owls, so I'm going to have to get that tool out of the bag. Also, to show you guys, this is the bag that it comes in. They do not ship their firearms in a hard plastic case anymore, which I'm sure many of you already know that, so that's nothing new. I guess I really didn't care. I mean, having the range bag is nice because I am involved with a pistol league, and it is nice just to be able to toss a firearm in the bag and then go to league and do what I got to do and then come home. So again, that's really contrived. I really don't care if it has a bag or if it ships in a hard plastic case. So forgive me a moment while I fumble around with a little aftermarket bag that I ended up putting the two tools in that came with the firearm. Oh, by the way, I don't have a fancy YouTube name either, and I doubt I'll come up with one, but anyhow, here is the first tool. It's just a small Allen wrench that they include for you to be able to do adjustments on the trigger. And here is the other tool that they include for you to be able to actually take the pistol down. So, first thing that you want to do, obviously, and you guys already saw that the weapon was safety checked. I don't have any ammo laying around or anything of that nature. And that's something else that I wanted to kind of touch on. If you have to remind yourself or remind the people that are watching this video that your firearm is unloaded and you don't have any ammunition laying around readily available to accidentally load into the firearm and shoot yourself with, and maybe you shouldn't be doing videos. You always want to check to make sure that when you're handling a firearm, obviously, that it's not loaded. Unless you're out there at the range and, you're actually using your firearm, whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rack this slide back. I'm going to lock it into place there. As you can see, lock back. Then you take the first little tool here, and you probably won't be able to see it on the video very well. Try to adjust the lighting slightly. So there is a small hole in the guide rod. So take that tool, you insert it into that hole, just leave it dangle there for a moment. And then you want to pull your slide back, let your slide stop down. There you go. So now the tension, all the tension is taken off of the spring, and you can now move your slide back. Like so. All right, move it back until you line up the indentation here with your slide stop, very top of it, and then press the dimple on the other side. Take your thumbnail or fingernail, pull that out, and that removes the slide stop. Then you can bring the pistol forward, and then you can remove it. All right. The pistol is dirty. I haven't had a chance to clean it yet since my last pistol match. So I'm just going to take out the guide rod. This is what they consider, I guess, a full-length guide rod. And then you don't have the bushing on the front, and push that forward. Pull your barrel out. Like I said, it's a bull barrel, and it's got a ramp. It's ramped, polished ramp. My experience thus far with the ramped barrel has been pretty good. It will cycle any factory ammunition that I have chose to put through it. It does not, however, really care for semi-wad cutter rounds, which I use at Pistol League. That does take a little bit of effort to cycle that first round, but once it has cycled, it seems to handle them okay. I haven't had any stovepipe issues or failures to feed or failures to eject. And you know, I'm sure as many of you people out there know that the semi-wad cutter or full wad cutter rounds are used for scoring. You want to make sure you get a nice clean hole in the target, accurately score it. So anyways, I'm gonna light up a cigarette. Sorry guys, I'm a smoker. So if there are small kids watching, sorry about their luck. Getting on to some of the other attributes here. So again, probably won't be able to see this, but right here, is just one of the areas where the anodized finish was starting to flake off. And when I first noticed it, I noticed, and there still are, and it's doing it again, it looks like, down here just below the grip, where the grip is beveled to the frame, it was flaked off really bad. And then right here on the inside there, again, it was practically missing. And there were some spots around the bevel on the mag well itself that were badly flaking. And so I contacted Springfield about it, and I heard that they had really good customer service, and told them what was going on. I sent them photos, this, that, the whole nine yards, and they told me to package up the pistol and send it back to them, and they would address the issues. Now, I hadn't had the firearm probably for maybe 2-3 weeks after I really started to scrutinize it and find things about it that I didn't care for. And they were gracious enough. I sent it back to them, and probably about 2.5 weeks later, they sent the firearm back to me, and they had completely redone the finish on the slide, and they had completely stripped all the parts and components off the lower frame and re-anodized. They gave me brand new grips because I complained that I found a chip on the bottom along the bevel there of the grip. So they replaced the grips, and they even went as far, because I told them that I noticed that there was some unintentional wear on top of the rear sight that I didn't put there. They even went ahead and replaced that. I was just super happy. I mean, I thought that was just phenomenal. And I got the firearm back and looked it over, and I thought everything was pretty copacetic. And just went about my day-to-day business of carrying it. And I really enjoy carrying a 1911. Got to give a plug to JM4 Tactical. This is the holster that I chose. A little cashy. And I'll tell you some other things about it. It's a great looking holster. Was extremely tight when I received it. And I mean, it's a one-off because, you know, it's got the rail and it's for a 4 1/4 inch model barrel and blah, 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 blah. And the only complaint that I have about this holster is how tight it was when I first got it. It took a long time to break this holster in, and what I noticed was that every time I drew the holster, I would pull out just massive chunks of leather because of how sharp this front sight is. It's got some checkering on the front sight, and I know you can't see it, but there's still little bits of leather that are still caught inside there, and it really cut into that holster and actually started to wear off the lettering from, you know, the markings from Trigicon on top of the sight itself. Just really wore those off quick. As far as it wearing the finish down on the pistol itself, I mean, that's going to happen with any holster that you purchase. I don't care if it's, you know, a Kydex, a Bulletron, or a JM4 Tactical that's got the Herman Oaks leather and, you know, stitched to the inside of it. Would have been I think it would have been kind of nice if this same quality or same style of leather was also on this part or this portion inside of the holster itself, but probably would have made it a lot thicker than what it was, or what it is. But as far as a holster goes, I mean, it is. I mean, you get what you pay for. It's really nice quality. I really enjoy it. It does a really good job of concealing the firearm when I'm wearing it. It's comfortable. You can't notice that it's there when you are wearing it. All right, so getting back to the firearm itself, and I'm gonna have to actually take the grips off so you can see what I discovered when I did strip it down. I'm kind of glad that I did this. Otherwise, I may not have noticed it at first. I mean, let me take that back. I did notice some, what I thought was just an area that they missed. Again, I'll put some photos in with the video to hopefully maybe emphasize this a little bit better. Doesn't look like the flashlight's gonna do me any good. But what I noticed was right down here. You see that looks just like a spot where the coating, where they didn't quite get the coating refinished very well. You know, so it wasn't really that big of a deal to me at first, but I was wanting to strip the handgun down, you know, kind of far, just to give it a good cleaning. And so I decided that I wanted to take the grips off. And when I took the grips off, one thing I noticed was that the grips had worked themselves fairly loose. And so that told me that I needed to check those every now and then, or maybe buy some rubber bushings that I've seen for sale, and put those down in there to help lock them in. I learned a while back ago, never, ever, ever, ever use Loctite on your firearms. Just a bad experience with my AR-15. I was a little overzealous with the front rail, and I had some screws back out on me at the range one time, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go get me some blue Loctite and Loctite those in, and that rail, well, screws will never back out again. Well, that was a huge mistake. Ended up stripping out the screws and couldn't get the rail off, so I took it into a local gunsmith, and that was a $400 mistake. That was a $400 replacement for him to be able to take those screws out and put another rail on for me. So I will never ever use blue Loctite again, or any kind of Loctite on my firearms, especially aluminum. Now, I noticed that this bushing here was starting to back out a little bit as I took the grips off, so I'll get that in camera for you. You see what I'm doing here. I'm just gonna tighten these down, just to make sure that they are tightened down when I go to put the grips back on. And with, you know, with working with your firearm, you know, it's nice to have the appropriate tools. Make sure you're using the appropriate tools. Okay. All right. So once I got the grips off, and I was just, you know, cleaning the frame, just trying to make sure everything was buttoned up nice. You know, I'm not a huge proponent of over oiling your firearm. I just try to make sure that I get everything clean first, to make sure I get all the fouling out of there, because I'm shooting tournament stuff. You know, like I said, I'm using lead semi-wad cutter, and you get a lot of fouling down in here, and just trying to make sure, get it all cleaned out. One thing I did realize when I started taking interest in 1911s was that the fact that you're going to have to put a little bit more maintenance in behind them, rather than, you know, like some of the Glocks that I own. Those things I could just beat the crap out of, and they'll take all kinds of abuse and just keep shooting. One thing I noticed when I had the frame, or had the grips off, was when I started looking at that spot again, which I thought was just some of the coating flaking off, I actually noticed that there's a pretty significant gouge right there. If any of you guys out there have experienced that with either an aluminum frame or steel frame model 1911, I'd sure like to know. But when I called Springfield Armory about it and sent them some more photos of what I was finding, they sent me an email back, and they said that they talked to the technician that initially first serviced my firearm the first time I sent it in, and said that that was normal wear from actuating your safety. And I'm thinking, really? Okay, that's kind of odd, because, you know, I have not had this completely disassembled. You know, I'm not to the point yet where I'm going to just take every little thing down take everything apart on this just yet. And there's a reason for that too, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. But let me just go ahead and remove this. On this side over here, your ambidextrous safety, it just pops right out. And so I was looking down inside there and just trying to gauge if the slides or the safety was the cause for the problem, and I don't believe it is. I don't think that there is any reason for that part to have caused, for the safety, excuse me, to have caused that deep gouge right there. So under a magnifying glass, looking at it real close, started to make me nervous, because you know, there's, to me, just my opinion, there's a lot of force back here when you're firing a handgun, and the recoil is throwing the slide back and then stripping off another round and throwing it in the chamber and whatnot. And this to me seems like it would be a critical point, I guess you could call it, a stress point. Maybe it's not. And again, if you guys out there have experienced this on your 1911, whether it be an aluminum frame or a steel frame, I'd really like to know. But anyways, getting back to Springfield, like I said, they told me that that was normal wear on the firearm itself, and that just really didn't sit that well with me. I know this is not the most expensive one, but you know, to me, it's expensive. I mean, I paid over $1,000 for the handgun, and just in my humble opinion, I mean, if you're going to pay over $1,000 for a firearm, I just don't feel that that kind of wear or that kind of damage on the firearm is acceptable, especially if it's something that you're going to carry for personal defense. You know, would you guys consider that to be, you know, something that could fail on you in the future? I mean, you know, especially during the quote unquote, you know, inopportune time where, you know, you had to use your firearm to defend yourself. So just throwing that out there. Something else too, while I'm thinking about it, the accessory rail. And again, just my opinion, who cares? It looks cool. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, yeah, it does look pretty cool, but as far as practicality goes, you know, if I'm out there carrying my firearm, the chances that I'm going to have a light or a laser on the bottom of this firearm is pretty nil. If you're not proficient at shooting your firearm, if you can't, you know, at, what is it, 7 yards, what they often say would be the distance that an encounter could happen. If you can't put 3 rounds or 2 rounds on a target at 7 yards, then you need to practice. You need to get to the range, and you need to practice with the sights that come on your firearm. I mean, you need to be proficient with it, because, you know, do you really think within the 3 to 4 seconds that it would take an individual to go from 7 yards to your personal space that you're going to have enough time to flip on a laser? Or, you know, yeah, I know they make make grips out there with the laser already in them. So as soon as you grip the firearm, then boom, the laser comes on. But I mean, what if the batteries go dead? I mean, what if something does happen and you don't have that laser, or you don't have that light, or just my opinion. I mean, less I think is better when you're talking about a personal defense weapon. And the addition of a rail, I'm never going. I wouldn't say I'm never, but more than likely not going to attach anything to this. Matter of fact, I am highly considering trading this firearm off for a few reasons. The biggest reason being that damage right there, the damage right behind the safety right there. I just don't feel that that's something that, for myself, I can live with. Again, I work really hard for the money I make, and for the few firearms that I do have, I'm not going to live with that. I'm not going to live with the idea that, if that is being caused by actuating the safety, or if it's just being caused because there's some kind of defect in the material. I don't feel that that's something that I want to take a chance on. And so I am considering trading off this firearm. Like I said, it was my first 1911, and it is my first 1911. And although I'm extremely happy with carrying a 1911, I don't think it's going to be this one anymore. If Springfield Armory chooses to go the route and telling me that that is just normal factory, or that's just normal wear, then so be it. I mean, I'm not going to argue with them. I'm not going to try to debate it. I'm just going to get rid of it. And I would not say that I would not purchase another Springfield Armory product, but I will tell you that I will no longer purchase an aluminum frame, whether it be a Springfield, whether it be a Colt, Kimber, period. I'm not going to purchase an alloy frame pistol any longer. My AR-15, yeah, I've put thousands of rounds through that, and obviously it's aluminum alloy too, but it runs flawlessly. It it gets beat up the whole 9 yards, but I don't have any areas on that rifle that are doing that appear to me to be failing. I mean, it just has its normal wear and tear on the rifle, and that's for me. I mean, but I expected that. I did not expect that from a $1,000 handgun, especially from a company that supposedly has a very high reputation. I mean, they came highly recommended to me from a lot of people that I talked to, and I did put a lot of effort into researching different brands of 1911s before I even considered buying this one. I had a price point that I was trying to hit, and I had a quality level that I was trying to hit, because even though I know there are much more expensive and much better fitted 1911s out there on the market, like a Dan Wesson, or what are some of the other ones out there? I'm drawing a blank, but Nighthawk, and who else? Wilson Combat, and all them. I'm not going to spend that kind of money on a firearm that I'm going to carry every day. I'm sure I would get a lot of comments, or maybe I won't even get a comment at all, about the fact of how much money is your life worth, blah, 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 blah. Well, my opinion is this. I mean, if the firearm I choose to carry out there every day if it doesn't run and function as well as a $3,000 or $4,000 firearm, then, you know, what's the point of carrying it in the first place? I mean, this firearm will do the job. The firearms, in my opinion, that are, you know, your production firearms as opposed to your hand-fitted or custom firearms, they have, you know, they have one job, and that is to put a round on target and to stop the threat. That's it. This is not for, you know, these aren't, in my opinion, a show factor. I mean, you know, you're not being judged by the you know, look of your grips or the look of your holster or how much crap you can hang on the end of your gun or whatever. I mean, that's not what it's supposed to be about. It's a personal defense tool that you take out there, that you either defend yourself or you defend your family or whatever. I mean, its one sole job is to put a round on target and stop the threat. That's what it's for. So anyhow, putting this thing back together, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You know, start with the grips, put your grips on, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure this is the point of the video where you guys have probably just went ahead and skipped on to the next one, because I know I've done it to quite a few videos that I've watched on YouTube. So just make sure those are in there nice and snug. Oh, something else I wanted to complain about, and maybe I shouldn't really complain, but just want to point out that, you know, so a lot of these production, I wouldn't say all of them, but, you know, quite a few of these production-made firearms, they don't have any checkering on the front strap, which I never really, you know, could quite understand. I mean, maybe it's just because it costs the manufacturer a lot more to produce that than it should. But to me, I think checkering on the front strap should just come standard on any 1911. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense. I will tell you that, you know, I don't have any problems with handling the firearm. I don't have any problems with control. I have in my opinion, a good grip. I practice good stance, or at least I think I practice good shooting techniques. You know, I'm able to score consistently out of 200 at pistol lead, you know, 175, which in my opinion ain't that bad. Of course, I'm there. I like to go. I like to shoot fun. I like to do a lot of shooting. You know, I do a lot of hunting. I'm a big deer hunter. But anyway, video for another time. I won't ramble on. So, got the grips installed, and then, you know, like everybody else knows, you know, you go ahead. You know, I put the little bushing down, put your barrel in, that drop into place, and take your guide rod, slide it in. At this point, put that up. Go, and I push it ahead. That's the way I like to do it. Push it ahead, and then I actually unseat the barrel just a little bit, and just I push it up about that far. That's where I'll position it. I found that it actually for me makes reassembly a lot easier, and then I assemble upside down and put that in there. You know, slide the frame back onto the rail. Come back, line up the hole, take your stop, push that back in. A lot of guys, I've seen they just go ahead and they push their slide stop back in until it clicks. Well, on this one, on this particular firearm, I've noticed that it's just easier to take that tool that they provided, the little Allen wrench, and push the retaining spring back, and then slide that, pop that in, and in my opinion, that helps to avoid the idiot marks that you may get on the slide itself, and or not the slide, but the frame. Try to avoid scratching that up, because you know, it will scratch. I mean, if the coating is flaking off as easily as you know, as I've seen it on this firearm, then you can scratch it, you know, just as easy putting that back in. And so once you have that all pushed in like so, go ahead and pull this back, lock it back into place, take out your tool, go ahead, rack it a few times, check for functionality, everything looks good, safety works, everything's working just fine. So again, that's just a quick review on the Springfield Champion Operator Lightweight. Overall, I think it's a fine pistol. I think it shoots fantastic. Very consistent. I haven't had any malfunctions with the firearm, but I think the quality control from Springfield leaves something to be desired. But overall, I think it's a good handgun. I mean, I would depend on this if it came down to it. I would certainly depend on it. But like I stated before, there are just a few things about it that don't sit well with me, and just a learning curve. So hope you haven't found this video too awful boring, and maybe I'll do another one sometime in the future.